There we go, okay. So we're going to start this June 6, 2024 regular meeting of the Board of Education. I'm going to call to order. We have any public? No public. We are adjourning to closed session.
Don't anybody leave yet. I need my picture. I promised. It's okay. Yeah.
Do you want me to take it?
Of course, of course. Good evening. We are reconvening our regular scheduled meeting for June 6th, 2024. We would like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Mark, would you like to start us on this? Thank you, sir.
Right hand over your heart. Ready if you can.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mark. And roll call. We have everyone here this evening. Move on to the report out of closed session.
All right, in closed session, the board took action to approve the recommendation for appointment of Caitlin Sylvester as principal at Miller Elementary School beginning July 1st, 2024 by a vote of 5-0.
Ms. Sylvester, if you can come up to the podium. Congratulations.
Okay, podiums make me feel really short. Here we go. Good evening, President Houston, Board, and Dr. Ibarra. My name is Caitlin Sylvester, and I am excited to be here to accept the position of principal at Miller Elementary School. During my career at EUSD, I've been an elementary teacher, a middle school teacher, a TOSA, and most recently an AP at Rincon Middle School. As principal, I look forward to meeting the students and staff and community of my new school. Thank you for this opportunity, both to the board and to cabinet, for your confidence in me and allowing me to take a moment of your time. And just quite the summer send-off. See you in July.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to the approval of the agenda.
Probably shouldn't have to stay.
Oh, yeah, you don't have to stay. No, you're good. Thank you. I was going to wait a few minutes and then say, yeah,
I move approval.
thank you. Leslie. Second?
Second.
Second by Mark. Passes 5-0. Moving on to the approval of the minutes. I need a motion and a second.
Move approval of the minutes of May 23rd, 2024.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second.
I know. I know. That doesn't happen to me once.
And it passes 4 with 1 abstain. Moving into public comments, do we have any? None. Moving on. We're going to have a public hearing for the local control account plan. We are going to open that meeting. Do we have any? No? Okay, that meeting is now closed. Moving on to the public hearing of 2024-25 adopted budget and excess reserve. We're going to open that meeting. We have no speakers. We are now going to close that meeting. Moving on to the report from the California School Employees Association, Chapter 150. I see no representatives. Moving on to number 5, the Escondido Elementary Education Association, Educators Association, and we have no representatives from there.
I think everyone's happy school's out.
Yeah, I think everybody's taking a deep breath.
Yeah.
Going to our written communication, everything has been handed out and presented to all board members. Moving on to the consent. Is there anything that we want to pull from the consent calendar or have discussion on?
Yes, President Houston, I'd like to discuss just a couple questions on, I just lost the item, where is it? The agreement with the San Diego Imperial Council of Scout in America. One thing that I'm a little uneasy with is Escondido Union School District agrees to item C, review and approve all adult leaders who will be working with the youth members. I'm just curious why, excuse me, why would we, this to me seems like a facility use agreement. And so I'm just curious why we felt necessary, and perhaps there's a good reason to review the individuals or the volunteers that they use. Just seems like we're getting closer to having some sort of oversight, which I'm concerned that we would be at that point.
This MOU actually creates actually a partnership more or less with the
Right.
district that we're actually going to take part in and grow this program within our schools. So it's more than just a facilities use agreement. And because of the working with our students, and the requirement is that parents must be there with them, but because they're going to be with our students in more of a partnership and not just renting our facility, that we would want to have some say over who should and shouldn't be around our students. Now, obviously, they have a very thorough vetting program, but we just want to be able to be a part of that.
So I guess I'm unclear. So we're going to actively recruit to try and build their organization? I'm wondering why that's our job.
Where we're trying to kind of bring that in. It's not necessarily going to be part of the after-school program. There's no cost for it to us, but it's another thing to complementary to our after-school offerings of building community and providing more programs with our students.
Sure. Full disclosure, I went through this whole program.
Mhm.
Proud Eagle Scout, know
Yep.
it. But I'm just concerned why, I'm just a little uneasy or unclear as to why it's in a way competing with what we're trying to do after school. I don't know. It's a unique agreement. I do agreements all day, all the time. So I don't know if anybody else has any thoughts. It just seems unique that we're trying to help them build their organization as a community offering. I have no problem like allowing them to use the facilities. I think that's a
Sure.
great thing. I just don't know why we feel it's important for us to
I think we felt
aid
that
them.
I just felt that when all the meetings we've had with them, with some of our principals, that we found that this was an opportunity to build all of the things that you and I both and others here on the board have experienced in our time with scouting, and that we felt that those were ideals that we'd like to grow within our community here. And the scouting has more or less diminished greatly here in Escondido, and bringing this in, and we're actually where we wanna-
Nationwide.
Well, sure. And where we want to start this actually is with the FAR, Pioneer, Rose, and Lincoln schools in that corridor, and really started there, appealing to those families and in offering something that they generally probably wouldn't normally have access to or know how to get involved with. So we see it as an opportunity to build, also with the families having to be involved, of creating that partnership not only with the scouts but with the families as well, as we grow this up and grow these students up within that. And it's now it's Scouting of America, and it's not just the Boy Scouts. It's actually open to boys and girls, and again with the partnership with their families at all times as well. And then all the things that they can do that spin off from that, the camps and those types of things. It really fits within the model that we've been exploring and implementing with our after-school program. And so it's just another thing, but it does no cost to us. And so while it seems like it could be a facilities use, we wanted to have a more active role in growing it here in Escondido.
If
That's kind of
there's-
our pitch for it.
Yeah, if there's no cost, but I mean, well, obviously we're gonna have some sort of personnel investment if we're being involved. Has that been identified as to what type of personnel cost?
They're actually providing, at their cost, somebody that's going to run and start these programs. And then the parents, someone from the parent group would have to be like the den parent or whatever level that we're talking about in that. And so really for us, making our facilities available, but also having some oversight, in fact, creating kind of a board of sorts as well that we would participate in just within our normal working time and no extra cost for that.
Okay, yeah, I think it's just unclear to me. I mean, if they, obviously, it's going to take our district resources to assist them, and I'm just unclear as to why we're doing that. That's all.
So as I understand this one, what we're really trying to do is to provide opportunities for students in that Lincoln corridor who traditionally have not been involved in scouting and haven't had the opportunities for the summer camps, the sailing opportunities, all the other things that are involved in that. My understanding is that this is going to be an after-school program where Scouting America is going to be providing the training for parents. Is
Yes.
that correct?
Yes, they provide all of the training at their cost with their employee.
And they'll also be helping them go through the clearance processes and all of that. And so really what our community would be gaining is what would have traditionally been offered through all of the different scouting programs that, as Mr. Olson so accurately states, have just not survived COVID and have not survived for very many reasons. And I know my old troop has combined, the two largest troops in Escondido have combined into one and have less than 20 kids now. And so this is really giving our students an opportunity to participate, not just in the after-school activities, all of the advancement the possibilities, the learning, the civics lessons, but also in the summer camps, the weekend camps, and it also provides the families with those opportunities as well. Is that correct?
All of that is true. And also to say, too, is that we're replicating what San Isidro School District is also doing already with the Scouts. And so seeing what they've done there and seeing that there's a lot of opportunity for our students here to take part in the same type of a program.
Yeah, and I mean, scouting is big in Latin America. It's very big, especially in Mexico. But so often our students just haven't had access to the scouting opportunities, or they don't have the background in it. And I mean, this is really, it starts off at young ages as a parent-run organization, and and then later on the kids take more active role in the leadership. So this is between the leadership possibilities, the values that are instilled, and the opportunities for other experiences. I think there's tremendous opportunity here. So, and I think that we can overcome. I don't think there's much personnel cost or anything else. I mean, certainly maybe facilities, cleanup and such, and this is sort of after the hours of the regular ELOP program, so it's after that, so there's not much competition. So I just see a lot of benefits here.
Yeah, and I want to be clear, I fully stand behind the principles of the original scouting, and I think most people would do well to follow them and be more engaged with them. I'm not seeing the purpose for us to enter into anything where we approve adult leaders who will be working with the youth members. I just think it opens us up to liability. Scouting is its own big organization. They have a lot of things in place. My father was a scout executive in San Diego. I'm acutely aware of what they have. So it just seems like a unique situation that I'm not so sure it's in our best interest to. I love that the fact that we provide them opportunities to use our facilities, their public facilities. I just don't know why we should be approving any of their adult leaders or having anything involved in personnel selection. Those are my thoughts.
That is a good thought. That the approval of the adult leaders would be through their chartering organization, or their charter organization. Is that correct?
That's the correct terminology. Good job.
Thank you. Thank you.
But I mean, like I said, it says review and approve all adult leaders who will be working with the youth members.
I think it's just giving us last right of refusal of something if there's any reason why we believe that some individuals shouldn't be involved in the program that we're somewhat sponsoring in this MOU. I think it's just a measure of even limiting liabilities, how I was looking at that. But I do understand that if we take part in that, then we kind of own it if we miss something, certainly. Yeah. I don't have another answer.
I'm not necessarily looking for it. That was just the thing that caught, knowing scouting acutely well as a volunteer for over 20 years and professionally as my wife worked for him and my father-in-law worked for him for 40 years. I know they have practices in place to vet their own volunteers, and I would be more comfortable with a use agreement that allows them access to use the facilities to accomplish the purposes that have been discussed here this evening without being involved with personnel or volunteer selection or anything like that. I think they should be able to handle that on their own. I do believe it benefits the community greatly to have these principals in our community, but from the seat I'm at right here today, I'm just a little uncomfortable with that item right there.
So the first, the only problem you have then is the last item, review and approve all adult leaders who will be working with the youth members. That's it?
That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
How does the board feel? Because, I mean, an option here would be to table it and bring it back, striking that one item. We can talk with Scouts of America, and then if we can strike that and maybe bring back an MOU without that item. But I think it's more than just that, though, too, just to be in full honesty here, that we're not seeking a facilities use agreement with them just to use our space. We're seeking a partnership with them. And so just that part of it coming out, I don't think it changes necessarily that partnership aspect. And so
I don't know that I would want to strike that. I mean, if there was someone who we just said for whatever reason, ooh, no, can't have this person, and they're like, but they've passed their background check, they've completed the training, all of that stuff, I would personally want to reserve that right of refusal.
perhaps one of our parents, unfortunately, sometimes find themselves engaging with our civility policy that wouldn't be aware of knowledge. The Scouts would have no knowledge of it, wouldn't come up on a background check, but we might have our own internal reasons why we'd want to restrict that particular person from being involved in our campus. That's one thing that came to my head now of why we would want to have that there, but I don't know if that changes the thought at all.
So would, under review and approve, would fingerprinting be involved?
Oh, yeah.
That would be done through the Scouts.
But they would do it.
attest to that for
Because it
the,
doesn't specifically spell that out. It just says that they're, where is it?
it's not clear about what the criteria are for approving on our
Right.
end, but like I said, I mean, if there's some
The
reason
criminal
internally.
background check, I
Right.
imagine that would.
That they would be
include-
doing that for every adult involved, absolutely, and they would attest to that as with our partnership. But we may have a reason beyond their background check that's not criminal in nature, that we might have a reason of restricting somebody, that would give us the opportunity to do that,
Someone who's banned from our campuses.
perhaps.
Yeah.
But just playing that out, wouldn't we have to then establish a guideline and policy by which we would reject somebody that was approved by the Boy Scout or the Scouting America? And then that would be open to appeal if we did do that. Man, I'm playing this out because this is what happens.
It would be
all the
rare
time.
if it happened, but just if we did have to, because there's also another, getting really into the weeds of it, but even beyond a civility policy, it's possible that there might be a restraining order involved that would not be criminal in nature. It could be more about custodial. It could be something else that we're aware of and we're involved in as the school district, but the Scouting of America, it wouldn't be a part of their background process. It wouldn't restrict that person in any other way in society, but it could be of concern to us. I don't know of that right now existing, but if it did, this would give us the ability to act on our own behalf if need be. But we also could table it for further discussion. I mean,
I think that we maybe want to table that
Well,
item
hold-
right now.
I don't know that this is a big enough holdup. I wonder if we need to table the entire thing, or if we can pass it and come up with a policy of those situations in which we would potentially reject somebody that the BSA not BSA, Scouting America.
Name change.
Does. I don't,
Is there an ability to do an amendment in reference to those?
but I think it would be a separate a policy.
I think it's an internal policy
with
what
us
Mr. Paulson's asking for.
Is what are the concerns that we would have that would cause us to potentially reject anyone?
And we have that policy already, like I said, the civility policy, so it really would just be attaching that as the criteria, perhaps, for this review of the adults. So I think we already kind of have language that would give us the ability to guide us on what are the criteria.
Yeah. I just don't see this as being something that we would need to stop this process for over. I just think that policy could be brought up and could be brought to your satisfaction, possibly.
You guys want to make a motion in a second? That's what the process is for.
Well, wait a minute, I just thought of something else, thinking about it now with all of these questions.
I apologize, I did not mean to derail it this much, but
You-
these
No,
are
it's
things that I
not
think are.
derailed.
It's a good
It's not
conversation.
derailed,
Good
but these are
conversation, yeah.
important
Absolutely.
considerations. There's no time definition to the MOU, to the partnership, basically. There's no termination ability from either side. What if we decide this isn't working for some reason or another?
Well, because there's no money changing hands, I think we would be able to say this is something that would not like to do anymore. I know it's not clear in that MOU, but it's also not really locking us into any contractual obligations of money and any of that would require a termination clause.
There's no sunset, there's no, renewable time, see how
It's-
this goes, and we can continue the partnership? I mean,
Without a time frame, it could be terminated at any time.
Yeah, it's not defined in the agreement, so
defined,
really there
so-
is no term, so
until you can't.
there's no termination clause, there's no reason why we can't terminate it immediately or in 20 years.
Or couldn't they come back and say, well, we've put all this money and time and
Yeah.
effort into establishing it with your
And now
schools.
you've decided, you
owe
decided
us
you
all
don't
this
want us?
money." Yeah, I don't know.
There should be, I would think that would be even more important to me. Definition of.
Is there some direction of which way we want to go? Do we want to try to table it and edit this MOU to have some of these elements in there, if it makes sense, since we kind of think about it further, or I don't know what else to do.
Have there been any problems in San Isidro?
None that we're aware of.
Is this basically the same MOU?
It's
that
exactly
they're-
the same MOU that they have.
How long have they had it?
It's not that old. I want to say a year or two. It's pretty new over there as well.
Yeah.
So yes, not been a lot of experience, but
They just
Okay,
rebranded,
and
so.
if I could please just refer everybody to the last sentence of the second paragraph. Either party may terminate this agreement at any time by
There we
written
go.
notice to the other party.
okay, thank you, yes.
Second paragraph, okay.
Last sentence.
All right, Chairman, disagree. Oh, thank you for that.
Do we want to separate this to have a separate vote, or do we want to keep it in the consent? Is there a wish to separate it for a vote?
Yes, I'd like to pull it for a separate vote, please.
Okay. Any more discussion?
I just wanted a statement on the windscreens. I know it's being done for a safety purpose, but I just felt like I needed to say it. I really don't like the look of it. I mean, it makes the schools look like a fortress. And I know there's a safety component to it, but the screens that, I used to love being able to watch and see the kids in a playground in a school, and now you drive by and it's all walled off. So I just want to say that if there's data behind it that it's safer, then so be it. But it sure takes the community feel out of what was once a school.
And for my answer to that too, if I may, FAR, we did wrap most of the fence around that given the way that they're laid out, but the plan going forward, we really were confining that mostly to the kindergarten playgrounds that are in front of the school and not the entire playground, but also exactly what we just spoke to is kind of why it's there, because we have had some experiences of FAR of onlookers that aren't necessarily what we would want to have standing at the fence line for that. But one thing, and I know it looks like a fortress you can't see in, but another thing we're going to be adding to it over time now too is other signage and even some branded decorations, if you will, for the school to try to soften that up so it doesn't look just like a solid wall.
And if I could just chime in here and second that concern of Mr. Olson's on behalf of my mother who looks out on the Far Avenue fence. It's kind of a sad thing as a society that we're having to wall off our schools. I also, now that you say it, I mean, we'd have to see the designs being put up on the fences. I don't know if that'll soften the look or just make it look gaudy.
Well, I like the dolphins at Rose.
Yeah, those are
something
nice,
of
yeah.
that,
Right.
But
you know.
they're not a screen.
But they're
No,
not
no,
on
but
the
I'm just
screen.
saying they were put in place to kind of break up that
Yeah.
jail fencing,
Yes.
you know, and you kind of just look at the dolphins now.
Well, like I said, going forward, it's really mostly going to be confined on the kindergarten playgrounds that are right in the fronts of schools. Some of the idea came from over at Rock Springs, where right across the street there is, where the freeway is. There's been many sweeps clearing out people who are living there, if you will. And there's a straight view into the playground there that was of concern to the school, as well as other incidents at other schools of people, onlookers, that aren't there as a parent.
So case by case, basically, as needed and as needed.
And just because those playgrounds for kindergarten are right there on the fence and right in front of the school, either at the parking lot or even exposed to the street, and just the littlest of kids, that's the idea. But
Well, I appreciate that clarification. I mean, and I fully understand and support identifying that in the preschool and the kindergarten. And with that, I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar with the one exception.
So we're going to remove J4 from the consent, vote on that separately. So we have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Oops.
It passes 5-0. Moving on to J4, I need a motion and a second on J4.
So I'll move approval.
I have a motion. Second, please.
I'll second.
We have a second.
Just a point of order.
Point of order.
And I don't know if we can do this. Could we move to approve with the stipulation of coming back with a criterion for determining which adults could be excluded? Is that a possibility?
looking to our parliamentarian, can we amend it in any way? If that's
Okay.
an order we can.
So,
You want to make the amendment to the motion?
well, can I amend my own motion?
Yes.
Okay, so I would like to amend my motion, but I don't know if it'll help, to approve the MOU with Scouting America, directing staff to develop a protocol for which individuals could be excluded at the discretion of the district.
With that new motion, can I get a second?
I'll second.
And we have John with a second.
Michelle's capturing it.
She is. That's okay. That passes 4-1. Moving on to L1. Presentations, reports, Independent Citizens Oversight Committee Annual Report.
I'd like to introduce Ms. Joyce Masterson, chair of our Independent Citizens Oversight Committee, and she'll be giving her annual report from the ICOC.
Thank you, Andy.
Carry on.
Thank you, Andy. Good evening, honorable members of the school board, Dr. Ibarra, and members of the community. On behalf of the Independent Citizens Oversight Committee, also known as the ICOC, I'm pleased to present our 9th annual report to Escondido, and hope that you'll enjoy hearing all the good news we have to share. As a quick refresher, voters approved Proposition E's $182.1 million bond measure in November 2014 to modernize school facilities, improve school security, and enhance the information technology infrastructure. At the board's direction, the ICOC reviews the expenditure of bond funds, ensures that the funds are appropriately spent, and informs the public about the program's progress. The ICOC has 7 members representing the community: a parent or guardian of a child enrolled in the district, a parent or guardian of a child enrolled in the district and active in a parent-teacher organization, an active member in a business organization, an active member in a senior community organization, an active member in a bona fide taxpayers association, which I happen to be a member of the San Diego Taxpayers Association as of 2 months ago, and an active member and 2 members of the community at large. I'm sorry. Over the past year, the Series D bond funds have been instrumental in transforming our schools in Escondido. We are proud to share that we have successfully completed several projects, each of which has significantly enhanced the outdoor learning environment. These include the shade structures at Bernardo, Lincoln, and Conway schools, the installation of new playground equipment and shade structure at Reedy Creek School, and the district-wide information technology Phase 4 at Orange Glen and L.R. Green schools, which has upgraded our digital infrastructure to meet the demands of today's digital networks. In addition, the bond completed a second 2-story classroom at Del Dios Academy of Arts and Sciences. An eventful ribbon-cutting ceremony was held in honor of opening the first and second 2-story buildings there. In preparation for bringing our students the freshest meals possible, the bond assisted the nutrition department in completing a much-awaited district-wide production kitchen at Rincon Middle School. This project entailed a complete overhaul of the underground sewer system, which is quite a big deal, with a higher capacity grease trap system to accommodate raw food cooking, which minimizes the need of off-site prepackaged food products. In addition, the kitchen received new flooring, a new walk-in freezer, a new dry food storage building, a larger and broader driveway for the larger delivery trucks, and a new trash and recycling covered enclosure. We are also excited to share our plans for the Mission Middle School Modernization Phase 3. This project will significantly improve the school and is currently in the final stages of negotiation with the lease-back contractor, Lusardi Construction Company. The project includes constructing 2 all-electric modular buildings with 25 classrooms, office spaces, a workroom, and restrooms for staff and students. The new building will be surrounded by an open learning quad space and an outdoor seating area adjacent to the administration building. We're also adding a decomposed granite running track, rugby field, and expanding the parking lot. The parking lot will be covered with solar panels, along with solar batteries and a series of EV charging stations, demonstrating the commitment, the district's community commitment to sustainability. Sorry, I had a knee replaced 2 months ago, so I'm starting to get a little tingle in my leg here. More recently, the district bond team received its next series of funding, Series E, in the amount of $10.7 million to be used for more projects to meet the bond initiatives. These would include more security and oh, I'm okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm good, thank you. These would include more security and safety projects and removing relocatable classroom buildings from the school sites. We look forward to another successful year with the bond team. An annual review of expenditures and performance of the bond program was conducted by an independent audit firm in which there were no findings, and this is consistent with the positive results of previous audits. The ICOC is pleased to report that the change order rate for the Prop E bond program currently stands at 2.7% over 9 years, which is simply incredible. The ICOC commends the district's openness and meticulous work in its reporting and presentations. We take pride in being part of the community that is deeply invested in the progress and growth of our schools. We eagerly anticipate the continued transformation of our community through the remaining bond funds and projects. And that concludes our report to the school board. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Moving on to M1, the 2024-25 Budget and Local Control Accountability Plan.
All right, good evening. So as we move forward through the required process of adopting the LCAP plan, this evening we will be reporting on the dashboard local indicators, as well as providing an update of some of the highlights of the items that are included in our 24-25 proposed LCAP, and a budget update as well. So next, we're going to go ahead, I'm going to hand it over and invite up our Director of Program Monitoring and Evaluation, Kathleen Sorensen, who is such a key part of doing lots of heavy lifting of developing our LCAP plan.
Good evening, President Houston, board members, Superintendent Dr. Ibarra, and Cabinet. This evening, I'm going to give you a very brief overview of the California School Dashboard local indicators, which are the metrics that are used to measure our progress on the state priorities. As you may recall, the dashboard items such as the ELA and math and chronic absenteeism and suspension are reported by the state based on the data that we report up to them. But the local indicators are something that we're allowed to determine. And this year, we always have to go over the dashboard at this time of the year when we bring forward our LCAP. But the one change that's happening, one of several changes that's happening this year, is they're trying to release the dashboard information earlier. So it's traditionally been released in December, and this year it's going to be released in November, and then the next year in October, which is pretty useful for districts who need to use that information. Okay, so for priority one, this priority has another new requirement, which is that we report out information on our appropriately assigned teachers. So in EUSD, we have 1,072 teachers that are rostered teachers, so they're not teachers on special assignment, things like that. And of that 1,072, 97% are appropriately credentialed. The state has some definitions of what they would consider teachers who are not yet appropriately credentialed. The first one is out of field, and that means that the teachers do not have the credential that aligns with the course that they're teaching. So in our instance, we have 12 of those teachers. 5 of those teachers, or sorry, I think 7 of those teachers teach ALC and TREC, and there are no credentials that align with those courses. So they still fall under the state definition of out of field, but it's because there isn't a credential. Then the others are teachers who have come to us from out of state, and they're currently working on their CLAD credential to work with English learners, and they're on an emergency permit until they can complete that, and all of those teachers are currently working on that. We have 15 interns who are in difficult to fill positions that are working with accredited credentialing programs. And then this year at the census data, we had one ineffective teacher who didn't quite have all of her credential requirements finished. That teacher has since completed those requirements.
But, Ms. Sorensen, just to clarify, when they label this an ineffective teacher, that's not reflecting on the teacher's ability to teach. That's reflecting on the credential that they do not yet hold. Is that correct?
Thank you for pointing that out. That is very correct. And we definitely don't necessarily
It's a disturbing term.
like the terminology that they use.
Yeah.
But we are required to report that out as such. And it's also reported on DataQuest, a state data warehouse. Then the other things of this priority is access to instructional materials. We have a history of having very good Williams reports. We've never, as long as I've been in the district, and that's been a very long time, we have never had issues of students not having access to their curricular materials. And our facility conditions have always been in very good condition. We've never had facilities that were not considered in good condition. Okay, our next priority is the implementation of state standards. And here there are 5 areas that we looked at. Professional learning for teaching the academic standards is fully implemented and supported via coaching and professional development. EUSD has fully implemented instructional materials that are aligned to the standards. We have implemented health education, career technical education, world languages, PE, and visual and performing arts standards. And as a matter of fact, next year we will be offering more courses in health and VAPA. EUSD has fully implemented activities to identify and address professional learning needs. We gather feedback from teachers, and we look at our data and use that to inform our ongoing professional development to meet the needs of our teachers.
I was just gonna say at the NETS colloquium, that was a lot of the feedback was how all the teachers appreciated all the PD offerings that they could choose from, and they really got a lot out of them.
Yeah, NETS has a choice board, what they call a choice board, and teachers have a lot of choice and get to choose their program essentially. And the NETS program actually has a lot of teachers that are no longer in NETS that come to those classes. Okay, the next priority is parent engagement. We polled or surveyed a diverse group of district-level parent groups to measure our district progress in this area. And they rated us in full implementation of building relationship between school, staff, and families, building partnerships for student outcomes, and seeking input for decision-making. And then next is priority 6, which is the school climate. And we are asked to use the California Healthy Kids Survey, or the CHICS, to measure this. And this shows our CHICS data from before COVID. And we're happy to report that for our elementary students, the percentage of students who responded that they feel safe at school all or most of the time is beginning to go up. We had a 1% increase in elementary school. But we're really excited about middle school because we had a 9% increase, which is pretty phenomenal. And the kids, in order to take this survey, the parents have to approve a consent, which they get when they do returning student enrollment. Then when we look at school connectedness, the percentage of students who responded that they felt connected to school, again, we had a 1% increase in elementary school. And in middle school, we had a 4% increase, which is great. It's been a while since we've had those increases. Then finally, priority 7, access to a broad course of study. We do schedule audits every year, and our students do have access to and are enrolled in all the required courses. They have access to advanced math courses in middle school, and every year the number of electives that they have access to is increasing dramatically. Okay, any questions with this part of the report?
Okay, sorry, not to be picky, but just looking at the total numbers of students who have replied to the survey, I mean, obviously the percentage went up, but is it, you know, how many students still feel safe in the, I mean, I know the percentage went up, but did the amount of students who felt safe go up?
Well, yeah, is it because the enrollment is dropping
That's what I'm
or
saying.
It's
fewer
because the
part-
enrollment is dropping, yes.
That's what I mean, so are more kids actually feeling safe, or we just have fewer kids and the same amount of kids feel safe? Does that make sense?
Yes,
So-
it's a percentage.
But it's but it's easier.
But it
if it's
also
the
gives
same
the
am-
numbers, which
If it's the
is
same amount of
helpful.
kids, if it's still, because look, we had 618 to 530.
Take the survey,
Yeah, so out of that, for six.
47%.
I don't want to do the math. We need some math
300 or
people.
something.
So just as a comparison, I happen to have the numbers here from last year and this year. For the percentage of students who felt they feel safe at school, last year, 1,359 students responded out of 1,606 possible students. And of that, 85% felt safe. That's fifth graders. And this year for fifth grade, 1,252 out of 1,536 responded, and 82%.
You're saying that's this year?
Yes, so that's 82%.
So last year was 1359 and this year is 1252.
Correct.
So fewer students are feeling safe. even
No,
though
those are the students that responded to the
Oh, they
survey.
responded.
Yeah. So every year, the number, first of all, we have declining enrollment, and then the number of kids that have the consent and respond changes every year, so that tends to make the numbers vary a little bit. So I think what we really need to look for is trends moving up. And before COVID, we were having trends of more and more students feeling safe at school. So the hope is that as
That's 290.
our schools have the community schools grants, that this is something that they're going to focus on.
We're doing the math here.
So, okay, so, yeah, I'm saying, so if I'm taking 47% of 618 middle school students, that's 290. If I'm taking 51% of 533, that's only 271. So less students total are, even though the percentage is going up, fewer students are feeling safe. So I mean,
But there's fewer students that you're testing, so the percentage is going up slightly.
but the actual amount of students is going down.
Right.
Based on who took the survey.
Yeah.
So because you have that variable of different amounts of people taking the survey each year, it's going to vary.
Yeah, but the actual amount of students that are feeling safe is going down.
But you don't
The
know
percentage.
you don't know if that two hundred
Right,
and
the
seven
same-
kids are
yeah,
the same
true.
207 kids that took it the year prior. So
It
it's,
might- yeah. It
so
would
you
not.
have a completely different group. So I think it'd be, unless you could single out each student and every year ask that same student that same question.
Right, but I'm just saying,
you're-
on a-
you-
There you go.
Then at that point, you'd have to look, then you could look at, is it getting, or is there perception that it's getting better or safer?
But it's an anonymous test.
But it's an anonymous test, so therefore you can't track it, so you have to go off, like you were saying, trends. So,
But we could look, I mean, potentially, if this were something that they were real interested in, you could look at the cohort, understanding that you're not going to have the exact same kids, but the kids in the same grade year over year, because how often do they take the chicks?
They only take it in fifth and seventh grade, so we could look at seventh graders and compare it to what it looked like when
The
they were in
fifth
fifth
graders,
grade.
yeah.
Yeah, when they were fifth graders, and we could see how that group is moving along.
But that cohort's also going to change over that 2 years, where you're having some
It
come in and some leaving.
is going to change.
But it
So-
would
And
be
really,
more
absolutely, it's gonna
cohesive.
This is a
More.
dipstick, right? It's a dipstick at a point in time of how they're feeling.
Right.
What sites need to do further is then you have, like if this is alarming data, then you now have focus groups. You pull in your fifth graders, you pull in your fourth graders, and you use this as an opportunity, hey, tell us about safety. What are your concerns? All of what we did when we started the Framework for the Future, we started with the students. They will tell us what's happening. They will tell us their perceptions, and then they could also help us figure out, what do you need to help you feel safe? What is it about it? Because safety goes into all these. Am I physically feeling safe? It's about belonging. Do I just don't feel involved at the school? So they can go through, especially when you get into middle schools. There's a lot of factors, and then you could peel the onion back further and further. Is it about how other kids are treating them? Is it a bit about the adults? Do they feel connected with them?
The social workers would be a good place to start with
Right.
questions, too.
And I think maybe as a dipstick, regardless of whether the trend is going up or not, when we're looking at 47 or 51% of the kids saying that they feel safe, I think we would all agree that's not good enough.
Right.
That's not something I mean, that is something that we need to work on and that the sites need to work on and really talk with the student, get the student voice and figure out what's going on and what can we do.
Because that also affects attendance.
Oh, yes.
I mean,
Exactly.
If you're not feeling
Right.
safe, I'm not going to school. Sorry.
No, no
Good
apologies.
discussion.
Very good.
Thank you. And that information came a little bit late as far as the chicks data. It just came in, and then we'll be able to further disaggregate it by grade level, by school. That then gets fed back to the school sites. So at the beginning of the year next year, they'll have that information to be able to try to make some decisions with their PBIS team that they have on campus about climate and culture and trying to continue to improve that. Okay, so as we then pivot over to talk a little bit more just about the highlights. I know that we've had a lot of conversations and about our LCAP, but as we're in the writing phase, there's, and as you know, there's been a lot of shifts, a lot of pieces that we've had to address with the kind of shifting educational landscape, the impacts of our budget challenges. All of those pieces had to kind of add a different lens as in the development of the LCAP and really looking at prioritizing of what are the services that we would be including. And so this coming year begins the new 3-year cycle with new goals. And so our first goal there is to provide personalized, competency-based, authentic learning experiences to create a foundation for achievement for all learners. Our second goal is to build a culture centered on whole learner outcomes, including engagement, social, emotional, cognitive, and mental health needs of learners. And then our third goal, ensure enabling conditions for optimal learning that include a shared vision, supportive policies, aligned resource allocation, trust, and safety. And so with that, under our first goal there, you can see some of the pieces that are going to continue to be maintained, and that is to continue to have opportunities for teacher collaboration and professional development. All of our elementary schools will continue to have a PE teacher. We will have paraprofessionals assisting in our full-day kinder program. Newcomer assistant, as those numbers continue to grow, we want to make sure that we're providing for their needs. Specific professional development for English language development, so designated or integrated ELD. We'll also continue to support middle school AVID programs. And then, of course, we'll continue with all of our extended day and extended year opportunities. Under the second goal there, you see just a couple of the highlights, the things that are being maintained with the social worker at each school, the 2 counselors at each of the middle schools. We have behavior supports. We have our modified TREC version in that it's only at the 2 sites, but still servicing the same number of students is what we're looking to do there. But we have our juvenile diversion program, our bilingual family liaisons as well to help us continue with parent education and engagement. Our elementary enrichment wheel, fieldwork experiences. We are having our elementary music teachers, our 4 teachers that we're maintaining, continued opportunities for visual and performing arts, and then of course to support our communication with families is our Thrill Share and district website. For goal 3, we're continuing to maintain professional learning time for teachers. Our NETS program is included there to support our new staff. Continued support with our devices and digital platforms. Performance Matters is that data warehouse where we're able to house all of our information on students that includes assessment data and behavior data. Noon duty support also, and then full day health tech support at each of our schools. And so those are some of the highlights that are included in our LCAP, and then we just wanted to speak a little bit about the planning also that's occurring around intervention and universal access, something that we've been talking about quite a bit. But for elementary, then, we're going to continue with this supporting our school sites to ensure that we have that universal access time. And so that's that common grade level schedule where they would have 30 minutes dedicated for math, 30 minutes for ELA, where a team would then share their students based on data. They would group them, they would share students, and be able to offer them specific intervention from those classroom teachers during that time. And so again, that requires a lot of collaboration, reviewing data, but part of that is a key piece there is to have those common grade level schedules. For the middle schools, the idea there is we historically have had a double period of ELA, and so this coming year, we have decoupled those 2 periods. That has allowed a lot more flexibility as our principals, as our teams have developed their middle school schedules. And so by doing so, there's more opportunities for teachers to be able to offer these classes that are personalized learning or universal access for these classes. So those classes might have students for intervention or for enrichment. And so just that move has allowed for some flexibility there in building those schedules. And again, those teachers will be continuing to collaborate and come together, looking at some of their data to be able to plan differentiation and for their instruction. And then there are some schools that are able to offer site-funded intervention and support, and those are being plugged into those schedules as well. We've talked about intervention and trying to maximize those after-school opportunities as well. And so there's just some information about what has been happening over the 22-23 and 23-24 school years as far as the number of offerings that have been provided, but then also those intervention-based classes. And so that's something that we're going to continue to promote at our schools to ensure that we're offering more of that as another opportunity, another means to be able to refer students to receive some of that intervention. And so the plans for next year is to, again, try to maintain that amount of participating teachers, increasing and designing those classes that are kind of, you can see they're kind of half intervention, half enrichment. Enrichment is to get them to attend and to participate and be excited to be there, but also inserting some specific intervention during those times. And for those classes, the idea is that they would have a smaller class size to be able to provide the Tier 2 and Tier 3 intervention. So that's the idea of trying to maximize those after-school ELOP classes for that. Some of those examples of what's been happening this school year is we have some math bridges intervention that's been occurring after school. Also, our Spanish reading intervention, and so again, those are teachers that have identified needs and have wanted to go ahead and integrate that and offer that as an ELOP class. And then even for our newcomers, again, trying to find other means of being able to provide them with support with the newcomer art class. And so knowing our focus on student achievement, ensuring that we're able to support our school sites in all of that work, is really making sure that we're prioritizing our professional development. So the teams currently are engaged in planning, and we've really been working on trying to identify what are the most important types of PD that we want to ensure that our teachers have, and that's going to focus on small group instruction, universal access, how to design, how to look at data, use data, and then design instruction that's going to meet the needs of students. Progress monitoring is really something that we're going to be focused on as well, supporting sites to do that work, as well as just that collaboration piece to make sure that when they are coming together to collaborate, that they're being efficient and that they're planning effective instruction. The other types of support and monitoring that we'll be doing is some level of supporting our principals, because we know that they are key. They are at the sites to be able to monitor the work that's happening. And so we're asking, even before they leave for the summer, to provide us their instructional schedules so that we can take a look at that and be able to identify ideas or any other suggestions to ensure that those UA times are built into their schedules for next year, as well as really kind of shifting, I think, when we come together as principals to make sure that they have an opportunity to update and collaborate, even kind of in their own PLC, principals coming together and sharing their data of what they're seeing at their school sites and how to best move the work forward. How are they monitoring their data and just facilitating those teacher meetings to make sure that they're being effective. Obviously, up here, we'll also be continuing to monitor that student stretch growth data at the site level, going out to visit school sites and walking through that, and just again, being able to point out trends to be able to make sure that they are supporting their staff and making the work that has to happen. So regular data progress monitoring meetings with our site principals, and then just really ongoing review of supporting how to best guide those instructional decisions that are happening. So, questions?
Yeah, so was that happening this year, the regular data progress monitoring meetings with site principals? Did that happen this year, or is that a new thing implementing next year?
There was some of that was happening, but that's going to continue even more so. So there was an opportunity where we would go out to the school sites, we would pull up their iReady data, we'd be able to talk to them about the intervention teachers that they had on campus and be able to kind of notice trends and look at the stretch growth, kind of trying to evaluate the impact of their programs that they had on their site. But absolutely, that'll be something that we're going to double down on next year as we continue to support them with that work.
Any other questions? Nope.
Okay.
Thank you so
I'm going
much.
to have Andy McGuire come on up.
Thank you, Dr. Filia. Good evening. So we've been talking for many board meetings about our budget, our financial situation, and all things related. And this is just the next chapter in that long story. So we'll dive right in. These 2 years here are actually what would be in our adopted budget, the book, the actual document that would be brought before the board with, for adoption on June 20th. So I wanted to kind of start off with that. It's the kind of highest overview of our budget. We'll get into more details of a lot of this stuff as we progress. But just as a refresher, we have our revenues and expenses over here in the unrestricted, restricted, and then those 2 total up to be our combined. Transfers in, money that from a variety of sources. In this case, we our redevelopment money transferred in, transfers out. Those are things like our long-term debt payments, certainly our solar, our iPad leases, we have a COP still in effect. So those are some of our long-term debts there. And then our contributions, and that made up of two main components. One, our special education investment from our general fund, our unrestricted into the restricted where the expenses live, and also our legally required 3% investment in our maintenance program every year. There's a lot more detail down at the bottom, and I'm going to get into that as we progress through this presentation. So I'll explain some of that there. But those two there, the estimated actuals, which are just an actuals at various points in time over the last couple of months, then projecting forward how we would end the year when we finally close the books on June 30th, and then our adopted budget that we'll be presenting, and that's what the bulk of this conversation will be about tonight. So first, as we dive in here to the adopted budget. So the first year, the 24-25, this would be representative financially of our plan as a district going into next year. And so our revenues there, you can see at the 194 million, whereas our expenses are about 175 million, but then the contributions also, even though it's a negative, just how they work out, it's actually an additional to that expense. Overall, all of that comes together to where we have a structural deficit there of $5.7 million as we stand today. We started the year off with $34.5 million for this year, and then following that plan, we would project to end the year with $28 million in our unrestricted general fund. So now let's dive in a little bit more into what you see now at the bottom. So of course, we have our stores, like our warehouse supplies, the items that we have there in the non-spendable category. And then you'll see a restricted, that's the ending balance, or what's, if you call it in reserve in the restricted fund. Then you have our regular 4% required reserve there of 11 million. And now we get into the new stuff. And so actually the first one, a commitment, the board actually a couple years ago made a commitment, like a recession mitigation way back when for some additional monies we had in our ending balance. That still remains. It's just like with any commitment, the board has to vote to commit, the board has to vote to decommit. So that still exists there, and it's actually quite timely considering the situation that we're in. We've discussed at previous board meetings having our Limitless Learning Academy still in a commitment here as well. And again, I'll talk a little bit more about what's driving that ending balance here later on in some of the other plans. Just wanted to get you familiar with what we have at the bottom there. Some of the money that's in our restricted general fund that I'll talk about as part of our EUSD plan, the $3 million there, that's something that I wanted to highlight a bit more in detail. And so there's a couple items in these commitments here that are more or less, for maybe lack of a better term, we're making a bet on ourselves. And as we know, our special education program is ever growing and the needs are great. And I just wanted to relate, you know, I've spent a lot of time, a couple of whole days I've spent working as a para. Been a lot of times when I visit schools going into the special education classrooms. It just it fascinates me, the work that's done in there. And then even yesterday at our RingCon promotion, there was just a touching moment that I noticed where I actually asked the principal if the adult sitting next to one of our SCSB students that was promoting was that her family? And no, that's her para. And it really touched me because what I saw was just the level of genuine care and compassion that the para had for that student who is nonverbal, but there was communication happening there, and it's just a testament really to the support that we're providing to our students with such exceptional needs. And the needs are great, and the resources, though, are increasingly scarce. And we do have a team led by our director, Patrick, over here, and a strong team that's focused on providing that loving, compassionate care that all of our SPED professionals are doing every day. But with a focus now also on efficiencies and ways to be able to provide those services and not have to pull back on them in an environment where resources are becoming more scarce. And so I know we're doing a lot of work on finding those efficiencies in order to help kind of contain the growth of those costs without sacrificing those services that I just described and all of you have seen in person at your site visits. So that $3 million that's there is, we have an additional amount already budgeted in our budget up in the top. But this is another amount that we would be asking our board on June 20th, you are our board, to commit that amount from our restricted, although it wouldn't necessarily be an actual commitment. We don't have to commit restricted funds, but that money set aside to contribute if we do need additional funds to go into special education, again, with the emphasis on us doing everything we can to contain those. If we don't need that money in that year or all of it, it could move over into the next year and the next year. And you'll see kind of how that plays out over our 3-year budget plan. But that right there is $3 million we've set aside that if we need it, it's there. But I'm betting that that we're going to not need to tap into that immediately in the first year, and that's going to help us to get through these next 3 years, given the budget situation. Also, as some of the things we did, and again, I'll go into great detail about what we used to call the alert plan, something different now. But we had to hold on to some of our one-time monies in order to build our ending balance to get through the next 3 years. But one of the things that was set aside because of that was textbook adoptions. And so while I'm not standing here today recommending spending that money down immediately, we are setting aside that money, and it would be a board commitment, meaning the board would commit that $2 million to textbook adoptions. The win of that would be part of our ongoing conversation of where we stand at any given moment and with an outlook on the future. But we wanted to emphasize that because we know that is a very important thing that we eventually are going to need to invest in. The next one, enrollment ADA loss, that's the next bet. We have been talking a lot about our ADA. Every budget presentation I show you about our ADA. We show the decline of enrollment, we talk about our ADA, we've talked a lot about it, and I'm gonna talk about it even more tonight. But here's where one thing our budget has been built on or been presented, where we were projecting to have at least a 94% ADA going into the 24-25 year and ongoing after that. But we talked a lot about this year, we only got to just over 92%. That there's a potential that we have to downgrade that revenue expectation to potentially maybe 93. That has a negative impact on the revenue expectation. So what we're doing here and why this is a bet is that we're in this adopted budget all 3 years, we're projecting a 94% ADA. Now, if we don't hit that, we have to pay the state back the difference in the revenue. That dollar amount down there, that $2 million, that's there. Never make a bet you can't afford to pay out on. So we've set aside that money. That's what we would ask the board to commit. We would like to set aside that money and hope to never need it. Hope that it becomes free for some other purpose, that I hope that I stand before you and can ask you to decommit that money so that we can use it for some other purpose because we've hit our mark. And I will tell you, the community schools grant, our pupil re-engagement team, all the work that's happening at our school sites and the connections that our teachers are making and really emphasizing on getting kids back into our classrooms for that learning, I'm confident we're going to hit that mark. And I have a slide later on that'll show you some of the financial aspects of what happens with our ADA if it goes up or down. But I'm betting on us not to need that money for ADA, to not have to give that back to the state. And then the rest of it we would recommend is just generally, again, a state budget mitigation, knowing that we don't know where that's going to land and we don't know what more is to come in future years. And the budget situation there seems so dire. And so they seem to be so willing to impact or allow that to impact public education that we just have to be holding on to something to absorb what more could be coming from Sacramento. Is there any questions on that first year and the explanation of these at this point? So go forward into the 25-26 year, our projected years, the 2 years that become part of our MYP. And remember, our third year, that's the year we measure our full fiscal stability and solvency. At the top, in previous multi-year projections I've shown for the last few board meetings, those numbers at the top there, those represent planned reduction numbers to our expenses that are already included in the numbers you see below. So there's still work to be done on the prioritization and finding efficiencies in our programs. Now, of course, those are as we stand today. Depending on how we do as laying out this plan, how efficient we're able to be, or if anything new changes in the positive direction, then those numbers would change. But as it is now, as a part of this plan and this adopted budget, those will be future planned reductions in those years that are included in these numbers that all total up and get down to those ending balances. So if I were to remove those reductions, the ending balances in each of those years would go down. And I'll show you later the impact of that. Any questions so far before I go on? All right, so let's talk a little bit about kind of I have two slides here back to back of about kind of illustrate somewhat of the disagreement. Our Legislative Analyst's Office, the LAO, as you've seen, has been very much in the news lately and since January with the January budget proposal. And they're in loud disagreement with the governors about the size of the deficit and what the governor's plans to do to deal with that. They're in disagreement. So I just wanted to give you what their outlook is, which is really kind of more of, I would say, in accounting. These are the people that measure all government programs, the impacts of things, the decisions that the legislature makes and prices those out, and helps inform the legislature and the governor on decision making. So with some of the things the governor's doing in the 24-25 budget, we're still going to have some deficits there, they say, but then there's the maneuver, he might call it, really kicking the can down the road and seeing potentially larger deficits even down the road as we stand now. Also, since the May revision was announced by the governor, the LAO is estimating or determining that the deficit has grown by an additional $7 billion. So it's not, right now we're still figuring out where the actual bottom is when it comes to the deficit. And we might have a balanced budget that they constitutionally have to have by the end of the day on June 30th, but certainly there's an outlook of much higher risk going forward when it comes to the state budget. Something for us, obviously, to be paying attention to and reporting back and make sure everybody understands how that impacts us. Next, we'll talk about the Prop 98 thing, which has been in the news a lot more than it probably ever has been since it was first enacted. And this is really, in layman's terms, or for everybody at home, and I never know what these people talk about, prop this, prop that. What does it really mean? Put it in plain language. Prop 98 is really the constitutional guarantee for public education, driven by how much revenue the state collects, and education is owed an amount of that. And so some of the things that the governor has done, he's been in negotiations with CSBA, CTA, other advocacy groups to really try to limit the impact on public education. And they, over the time of COVID, they banked a lot of money into what they would call the rainy day fund, and I would certainly say it's raining today. And so their plan is to remove and spend that down almost to nothing at this moment. Also, the governor is advocating to suspend the Prop 98 guarantee. It's been done once or twice before. It requires a 2/3 vote of the legislature, but which essentially says not to fund education at the amount that the Prop 98, the constitutional guarantee, calls for. But they have to keep track of what they don't give us that we should have been owed and what we actually get. And some point over time, very vague of course, they must make those payments back to us. That could come in future years when things turn around. There's been no clarity on to what we should expect from that. Just know that that's an element of that if they do suspend it. One thing we talked about the last meeting also was deferrals. That was mentioned in the announcement after the negotiations that the governor went through. And so what they're saying potentially would be deferrals from June to July. Now, those years listed there don't quite make sense. We've already had those years, a couple of them. But it's because of the overfunding, which I'll tell you, obviously, even funding it at the level they did was still not adequate. But because of the Prop 98 amount of money they should have funded, and overfunding that, having to make up the difference. Essentially, what they would do is our monthly allowance we get, what we're supposed to get in June, which is about $9 million a year, that they would withhold that. And then if it works the way it has before, and they have not given clarity, which is a little worrisome, it should then be repaid to us in the following July, the next month. And that would be the easiest, if you will, if there's ever a deferral, we never want them, of us to be able to deal with. We'd have to just borrow from other funds for that month. We'd still be able to make payroll. But then the expectation I would have, that we would all have, was that they would pay us not only the June payback, but also what they owe us already for July. And essentially what that does, though, is it takes expenses out of the year we're in, lets them balance the budget with that, and then move those expenses to the next year. So its effect for us is 1 month to the other, but for the budget, for the state budget, it's 1 year to the other. So there's more to watch for on that. That will have to become clear when they adopt their budget. And of course, you know, we'll be keeping an eye on that one bullet point as well. So there's much more to come from the state as far as when they adopt their budget. Oh, and just at a point on the deferrals, I was expecting them to adopt the budget by June 30th at 11:59, that they have to, right, or they don't get paid. If they were to adopt their budget, let's say on June 29th, we get our disbursement, our monthly allowance at the end of the month. They might have time to start that deferral now. And if they're going to do it, I'd rather them start it sooner rather than later to get ahead of the problem as much as they can. But it comes down to if they can get a budget deal by then, or if we've already gotten our disbursement by the time they would have lost that year. So much more to be watching for. It's really watching the state go through this whole thing has become a spectator sport, and not even a good one. Okay, so next up, was there any questions about all those? Okay, because I still have questions for the state too, so if you have them, we'll add it to the mix. So we talked a lot about what I've called kind of casually before is the LERT plan. That was the biggest chunk of one-time money that we still had, so we were just kind of calling it the LERT plan. And that just doesn't seem appropriate anymore. The state gave it that name. This is our EUSD plan. And so we just want to rebrand what we would call it before the LERT plan. It's the same thing, just call it the EUSD plan, because isn't that what it is? So what you have on the screen here is phase 1 or year 1 of the LERT plan. Now that we've talked about in slowing our spending in the current year and using those one-time dollars that we have now and using them to offset current year expenses, not adding new expenses, just offsetting current year expenses, and then letting that money fall down to the bottom line. And that's what creates the dollars in the bottom there that we would be recommending for commitment. So as you see here, our second interim that we presented in March, and then our estimated actuals, which is just an updated, you know, of where we believe we'll land by the end of, on June 30th ourselves. And that shows some of that movement. Now, what you can see over here on the far column, that's where all the math is done for us there. As you can see, the expenses and the unrestricted are down by 14 million. That's moving. We were able to move about 13.5 million or so into our unrestricted general fund from the one-time money, as well as reducing some of our spending. We do have a little bit more revenue that's really tied to the interest rates being so high, their money in the treasury, so now we capture that. So that's included in our revenue, as well as selling some surplus items. A lot of our technology stuff, when it becomes outdated, we collect it, and then we're able to auction it off and earn some money on that. So that's why there's a little bit more revenue up there. But overall, that unrestricted general fund grew by that 13 million, the ending balance grew by that $13.5 million that represents moving the one-time money. But we weren't able to move all of that money and offset current year expenses, because then it starts to compete with our LCAP and the dollars that are in there, and our requirement to spend those down each year. So in the end, there's money from the EUSD plan that's in the unrestricted column now, and some of it remaining in the restricted column. And in my next slide, I'm going to show you, I'm going to zoom in on just the EUSD plan money. But that's kind of how that's all going to play out. That gives us that ending balance that we're going to need to ride on for the next couple of years as the state figures themselves out. Is there any questions? Yes.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
changes from second interim and adopted budget in the combined column, you've added a positive and a negative and come up with a positive. So is that a?
Well, our revenue is up and our expenses are down, which would leave more money in the bottom line.
I know, but do you see where it says combined? And the revenue is 4,212,614, yeah, and the expenses are
Are we here
a
in this one?
negative 5 million.
Well, we represent, the expenses are negative. That's the difference. That's the change. So if you look over here, try to use this clever little tool here. This is more what so these numbers, so obviously the expenses here would be a negative and the revenue would be a positive. This is just doing the math, the difference between the two. So essentially, the difference, the change is we've added more revenue and decreased our expenses
Oh, I see
compared
what you
between the
mean.
two other months. So
So
that's
you've
not our
ended up
actual
with more
dollars, that's just the
money.
comparison.
You've not added them, you've added.
More money, less expenses equals more surplus.
Okay.
And so it's just a velocity of change, it's not the actual numbers.
I just saw in a column, positive and negative.
Yeah.
And if you add them,
Now, if we did that in one of the first two columns, then definitely,
okay,
yes, that would be quite
thank
embarrassing.
you.
Okay.
It's not that late either, so.
Any other questions about the EUSD plan year one? Okay. So let's zoom in on just the EUSD plan for years 2 through 4, where we're going into, and for the next couple of years after that. So let me walk you through the structure of this one. So it looks the same format, but it's somewhat different. At the top, you got our beginning balances. That's what we start the year off next year. That's only from the EUSD plan, not our regular revenues or expenses or any of that stuff. This is specifically that money that we're setting aside in order to get through the next few years. So we start off in our unrestricted with 21 million. Restricted, like I said, we didn't move all the money over, so some of it still resides in the restricted. And then so combined, we have $34.6 million that is our EUSD plan money to absorb the financial crisis in this state. The expenses you see there in the unrestricted column, that's equal to the unrestricted deficit, right? So having spent more money than we're bringing in each of these years, as we are, because of the situation, that's eating away at that EUSD plan, that ending balance. The expenses in the restricted column, those are expenses because we weren't able to move all of our expenses, all of our one-time money over to unrestricted in the current year. We just moved the expenses over there for next year. If we had moved them all over, we would have left those expenses in the unrestricted. You'd see just a bigger number there and a bigger expense. So that's where you can see that even though some of it's in unrestricted, some of it's in restricted, they both come together to be the EUSD plan. Mr. Paulson, did you have a question?
No.
Okay. And so the total expenses out of that EUSD plan for next year, as adopted, as we would propose to adopt, would be 14.4 million. That would leave behind combined $20 million for the EUSD plan. Then you see at the bottom, this is where our estimates of spending down some of those commitments that we would hope to make. And then we go into the next year and just focusing on the combined, because it really is the total amount there is what we have in the bank to get us through. That we start off with 20 million. We added the deficit, some additional expenses there that really represents probably some of that special education cost that was in a commitment before, if we need it. As we stand now, it's just there if we need it. If we don't, that would be great. We release it for some other purpose. But then a combined expense charged to our EUSD plan of 8.9, leaving behind 11.2. That gets us into the third year of a multi-year projection in this 3-year budget cycle. We really have to look at our budget in a 3-year cycle more than ever. Starting off with that 11.2, our deficit in there, and of that year being 4.9, leaving behind it, projecting as we stand now and nothing else changes. And we've used the monies at the bottom there, right, in total, that would leave us with an additional $6.3 million at the end of that year if nothing changes from this point forward beyond what we have set aside in these commitments. And I know, Ms. Garner, you're looking at me like lots to come to expect, and that's why I put this slide together right here. So out of that, I brought back up the actual whole budget year from the MYP for 26-27, that third year of our adopted budget. And you can see the money that's left over in that commitments down there represents that leftover money from the EUSD plan. Well, what could change that? If any of the years, next year, the year after, or the year after that, they change the COLA downward even more, that our ADA doesn't come in and we have to tap into that money at the bottom line, or our enrollment goes down more than projected already. Or another thing to keep an eye on that we've been experiencing already with there's been some legislative changes to laws that have kind of opened the door for more lawsuits. Without going into any detail, and I would never comment on ongoing litigation, But because of that, insurance rates, liability insurance rates have been going up across the state, and we certainly have had to contribute more into our insurance because of that law change that's created a higher level of risk and liability for insurance companies. So that's something else that we can continue to see is increased insurance premiums. Unforeseen expenses. A district our size, we could have unforeseen expenses that happen over the course of 3 years. That's a very long time, and we do a lot of things. But also even not hitting some of our budget reduction goals could also contribute to eating away at that $6.3 million that would be projected to be there at the end of the 26-27 year. So I'm just standing before you today showing what that outlook is in 3 years, all the things that could come to play. I'm still advocating for us to wait and see how things shake out and get into next year and really analyze how we're getting through this, and we'll be doing much more frequent budget updates to keep everybody updated on how we're going along in this plan. Any questions on this slide? Did it capture what you were thinking, Ms. Gardner?
In a way, have you factored in the mandatory automatic increase in the minimum wage?
Yeah, unforeseen expenses. That could be something external to us or internal to us, absolutely. So anything else you can think of that they might raise the cost to us, absolutely, would be something that would reduce the amount of money in that third year.
Not just that, but I'm thinking if the state can only do a deferral once, and they're gonna have to continue it, otherwise it's gonna be a bigger, as they're predicting, actually, a larger deficit in the following year if they try to go back to the original schedule. So those deferrals, and they'll probably, if things get worse, there'll be more. That's another unattested.
Well, before COVID, they had, I think it was the last 4 months of the year that they deferred into the beginning of the following year. I mean, so we're starting off with suggestion of it just being 1 month to the next.
But that's a tactic that it's the last best idea for them to balance their budget.
And that's, I mean, I know they use the term, kicking the can down the road. I mean, not quite literally it is, there's no cans involved, but it is. It's taking expenses from this year and just pretending they exist in the year after. It's
But
not
again,
balancing the
they can't-
budget.
If they don't make that up in the year after, they're going to have to continue it. And that's why it's so important that we have our mandatory 4% reserve. That's when it's going to be needed. That's our rainy day fund, and that will be the rainy day.
Yeah, it would be, but
the
even
cash.
that's not adequate to survive very long on.
No.
Which is why we needed to bank more money beyond just that, given the circumstances that are external to
No
us.
matter the promises of the state's rainy day fund that will evaporate very rapidly.
They're depleting it just to
Yeah,
balance their own
sure.
budget, not to increase services in our schools. Okay, whoop, I rushed ahead there. You ready for this? I'm about to introduce a whole new concept. So a graphical way to understand the multi-year projection. A tool that can be adjusted in almost near real time as we realize expenses, revenues, up and down either way, that show us our future. And I know that that's very important because as we look forward, these are scary times. And as we look forward, one thing that's very scary is the unknown. But what we're trying to do with this is to make as many unknowns known. And by doing that, we can at least help us to plan for those unknowns or at least minimize what they are. So our plans can be that much more effective. And it's a communication tool. So this is the first time I'm going to introduce it in public. It's never left my office. Here it goes. So over here, I'm going to use the little doohickey too. Walk you through it. So you get a bunch of lines on the screen. Let's just go right into what they mean. The black line, which you can't see because I grayed out the screen. The black line on the bottom there, that represents that 4% minimum reserve. So that's the bottom end of this chart. The 3 lines above it, those represent the entire ending balance of each individual year. The numbers associated with those are up at the top. So let me start with the top one, the rincon colored line. I wouldn't call it teal, let's call it the rincon color line. That's why we picked it. I was at their promotion. That line represents if we went into next year with the beginning balance of $34.5 million, which is the case, and that we had no deficits, for all 3 years of our multi-year projection. We got more revenue, we spent it, or we lowered our expenses, but then reinvested the space that made. We ended up with zero deficit in each of those 3 years, however we got there. That's obviously not our reality, but that's kind of the high end, that we go into next year and don't have deficits for 3 years. Just wanted to put that there for perspective. So that's the high end. The black line is the low end. The two lines in the middle, the red and the blue, represent the ending fund balance. At no point in time can that ending fund balance hit that black line. That would mean we don't have enough money to meet our reserve. We would be fiscally insolvent. The red line represents not having any plan that I just described to you before, the EUSD plan, formerly known as the ALERT plan. If we didn't do that, the way that we're spending without any other monies to help make up the difference because of the cut in revenue, we would become insolvent about a month or two into the 26-27 year. That's where the red line actually crosses the black line on there. The blue line represents the MYP that I presented to you tonight that is in the proposed adopted budget that would be bringing back for you for adoption on June 20th. The blue line is the EUSD plan. And as you can see, it gives us room before that black line. That's that extra $6 million at the end if we stay on the plan, but keeps us above fiscal insolvency for all 3 years of our multi-year projection. Now, I said this can be updated in real time, and because of that, things change. The factors change on the ground all the time. So we were trying to come up with a name for it. This is the best that Audrey and I came up with earlier. The forecaster. Throwing it out there, we'll see how it lands. It's the first time I said it out loud. Because it's really, it forecasts our future. And that blue line being our plan, that becomes our adopted budget. If we increase our, I want to just walk up there and point at it, but then no one can see me. If we were to, let's say more revenue came in, the blue line would go up. If we were to bring in, if the revenue got cut, the blue line would go down if we didn't do anything with our expenses. If we cut our expenses in some manner, revenue stays the same, the line goes up, goes away from the black line. Obviously, if we increase our expenses in any of these years, the line goes down. If it crosses the black line, fiscally insolvent. So what our plan for this is to then add into this more in the high-level way, but as we talk about decisions, what does this mean for us financially? We need to do this, or this has come up. We can plug it into here and show everybody what the impact of every decision, every new dollar, everything we do would be into the future, making a lot of the unknowns in the future known, giving us much more confidence in our decision-making, and so we can more accurately advise the board and seek your support and approval for any decisions that we make in line with what does it do to us in that third year, the measurement of fiscal solvency. So that was the graphic I came up to try to make the budget something easier to understand and also just use it as a tool for, just overall communication of that. Is the forecaster a name we can stick with? Open to suggestions if you ever have them. Okay, any other questions on the forecaster? Really rolls off the tongue. Okay. And I'll be using this in every budget presentation for this whole 3-year cycle and probably beyond. It'll probably get better. It definitely will get better, more detailed, whatever it takes for it to be an effective communication tool. Okay. I promised an ADA slide. So this one's a cool one. So what we did here is simulate different ADA percentages over the course of these 3 years. So the second to bottom line that's kind of highlighted in yellow, that's actually what our multi-year projection or adopted budget's built on, that bet on ourselves. And that's the best bet in town, bet on EUSD. 94% every year. So that's why that yellow bar on the bottom, that correlates to that. Now let's say we only got to 93 over the next 3 years. We totaled that up. That would be about a $4 million drop in our revenue over those 3 years. And you can see the actual LCFF revenues that are driven by ADA in each of the lines there at the top in the chart. If we were to hit 94 next year, and then why stop there? Let's get to 95 for those following 2 years. That would be an additional $3 million over the course of those 3 years. And let me just remind you, that makes the blue bar go up. Obviously, the blue bar goes down if we don't hit that number. So that's just kind of giving an outlook of the what ifs and just really putting a dollar amount on the emphasis on the work that we're doing and the need to really, and it's not just the work we do with our staff, it's our community, is we need help with that. We need help to make sure everybody understands the importance of being in our seats in our classrooms. Obviously, our funding's affected by it, but so is our learning. We can't teach you if you're not in our seats, in our classrooms. We got a lot of great things for you to come to school for. I'm saying that not for the people in this room, for anybody that might be listening at home. It should be a commercial on every television set in Escondido. Come to our schools. And this chart shows just one of the 2 reasons why it's important. Any questions on ADA? Thanks for enduring my commercial. So next steps, as always, we usually end there. We'll be bringing back on June 20th all of what I described here for you too in the very detailed big budget book and be recommending to the board to adopt that, which would be inclusive of the EUSD plan as I've described here today. And then the state will adopt their budget at the end of June. We'll wait and see what that does. 45-day revision will come back in August and do a presentation after we've closed our books. Not necessarily after we close our books, sorry, we're still in the middle of that, to show you what the impact of the state's adopted budget was on us going forward, even through all 3 of those years with an updated chart, definitely. The forecasts are updated. And then we'll be presenting our unaudited actuals, and that's after we finish closing the books fully on this year, and it's unaudited because then it goes into our audit. And we finally close the books fully on the 23-24 fiscal year in January when our auditor comes up and presents their audit report and our audited actuals. And that leaves us just with questions. Do you have any?
Any questions? Good. Is that Steve?
Not a question, but just a comment on ADA, if I could do my commercial. This is a community-wide problem, you know, nationwide, but it's impacting our community, certainly at the high school level, more than at the elementary level. I would just encourage us to work with the high school district on all of our ADA campaigns, because what we all know is that when we go out to houses in search of one kid, we usually find kids from multiple schools and through the 2 districts. We have separate SARB boards. I'm not sure why that could not be meshed. And we have a lot of efforts going on in each district that really could be very easily coordinated and linked in better, including what I think we really need is a real campaign, as you say, to get this word out to families and to encourage families to come in. So just, that's my ad.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I mean, we've talked this to death already, but I just wanted to say I appreciate the transparency we're trying to create with the community and with our staff of what it all entails and how ADA affects it, how the budget affects it, and what we're trying to do to mitigate all of those challenges we're faced with. I would love to see what other districts are doing to compare, like, how much are they spending on this? You know, just like the PC does with the salary schedule. Compare, you know, similar districts, how are they, you know, making it through as well, in case there's some ideas we can use from that. But I love how we, with the forecaster.
Thank you. That sounds great.
Forecaster. I know what your Halloween costume is going to be.
Actually, you don't. There's a surprise there, too. Definitely show up that day.
But, you know, I mean, we're going to have so much more work, again, to keep looking at our programs, because I mean, the state obviously has a lot to it, but I think we should have such a foundation where these shifts in the budget don't cost us staff as much as it, it has. I mean, I can't tell you how hard it was to sit at the next colloquium, and one of the teachers is at my table was a temporary teacher, and she had just, was so amazing, had such great ideas, and you could tell the love she had for the students and how much, effort we had put into her training as well through the NETS program. So
And
it was
she's
just,
gone.
and she's gone, and it was very heartbreaking to see that, that we don't have a structure in place to, continue with, some of our programs. So I know we're going to continue the effort, and it's just, it's a situation, and I think we're doing the best to mitigate that situation. But these are people, and we have to keep that in mind as well. That's it.
We have, when you had mentioned about comparisons, actually working with school services, and they do some comparisons on some items, like kind of a general assortment of them, but they also give us the opportunity to ask for additional line items in budgets and a list of districts that we'd like them to compare to, since they have access to all of that and are very thorough in pulling that information out. So that's something that we could put together. I think maybe over some time, everybody, if there's any interest in specific programs or anything that you'd like to add to the mix on that, I won't rush to ask for anything until we kind of will have a chance to think through that and put together some comparisons we'd like to see. But we have that opportunity to it.
Well, also just thinking about, the amount our budget has increased, yet our students have gone down, but has our staffing been in line with the declining enrollment? That, all those kind of things that add into it too, of where we were, say, 5 years ago, staffing wise and that type of thing, we can look at as well, so.
Okay. Anyone else?
Joe?
No, I think I commented, I had said what I had to say, and
Much
I'm
appreciated.
taking it all in. It's depressing, but it's depressing all over, and I think our district is in better shape than many districts because of the concentration and supplemental money as well.
Sure.
Some districts don't have that. So as far as the newcomers, I know we've had a number of newcomers, but I think it was over 200 that was mentioned. Are they attending? What's their ADA? What does that look like? Are they regularly attending, and do they add to the ADA?
Do we know that right off the top of our head?
Can we repeat it, because she wasn't in the
So
microphone. Yeah.
a lot of these students are working with direct services, especially those that speak their language, and a lot of those kids that are represented in that group are attending at a high rate. But I think that we'll pull an actual report and put that into a future Friday update. So to give us a chance to do some analysis on pulling those kids out and looking at their actual ADA for you.
But yet we're still in declining enrollment.
And our enrollment overall, yes, is going down. Now, I'll tell you on that ADA slide that I showed you, there's already enrollment decline baked into all of that. So we are already expecting there to be declining enrollment. Those dollar amounts are if we just get the kids that we have
Yeah.
that we expect to have in each of those years, even in a decline, to attend more, it's still going to give us more funding.
And there was also mentioned that the students who participate in the ELOC program are more likely to have a higher ADA.
Mm-hmm.
So I think to encourage the parents to have a real effort in getting those kids to come to
Mhm.
participate in ELOC.
Well, we're doing many things to create interest. That's an interesting place to be and a great place, a safe place, as we saw earlier too, for kids to want to be, for parents to want to bring their kids to. I mean, these are all the efforts we're going to now. Hey, we built it. Come enjoy it with us.
But also a concentration on the academics, because I'm looking, at the plan, and our baseline has changed dramatically from when we originally, from the 2019-20 baseline, and now that's our new baseline. The new baseline is the year 3 outcome from the LCAP. which is much, much lower. And I saw the decline, and I know that it was because of COVID, but even so, we have a lot of work to do, and it can't be all just fun and games. We have to make sure there's learning woven into that, and I know that's the plan.
Oh,
so.
yeah, for sure.
And that's the professional development, and I'm counting on that. But the kids have to be in their seats, too, to
Mhm.
benefit from it.
Right. Got to get them in the door, and then we'll take it from there.
Yeah.
We'll teach them.
If they're not in school,
Right.
no matter what we do, it's not going to help those kids who aren't in the classroom.
That's right.
And Joan, you made me think of one other thing, is that we're not just kicking the can down the road in this. We're actually making the tough decisions like some other districts aren't. And you may be using all this one-time money this year to make it look good, or next year.
We're not pretending like
We're
the
not-
state.
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean,
Next year
it's,
is going to be all roses.
it's
yeah.
not easy, but I mean, I think we're putting our district in the best situation possible by making these decisions now, doing the
Yes.
spending freeze like you did, and kind of multiplying that effect down the road to save us money.
Mhm.
And it's painful.
And not touching, still having one-time money, but not using it all up in the first year, using it to cushion that transition, so,
As we learn to conserve more.
yes, exactly.
Thank you very much.
Thank
One
you.
last thing. Happy birthday, Alex. It's my son's 12th birthday right now.
Oh, almost a teenager.
And I'm sure he wanted to watch you. He's watching the board meeting.
Mom watches the meeting. She brought him in.
Oh, okay, good.
Oh.
We had arranged that.
Whatever 12-year-old
You
wants.
made him watch the whole presentation.
He needs to learn sometime.
All right.
Call him to CPA.
All right, moving on to N1, Business Services.
Oh, here I am again. Is there a microphone in the room I'm not going to use tonight? So this first item here is we have, as Ms. Masterson has alluded to, that we were in the final stages of negotiations. The actual final step of that would be for the board to approve our guaranteed maximum price and the schedule of the project for Mission Middle School Phase 3. We've completed those negotiations. And so this item before you is, we're recommending approval for us for this project, for the cost of that project. For the leaseback contractor specifically, Lusardi, for this project.
And I need a motion and a second.
I move that the board approve the guaranteed maximum price of $13,064,423. And that's it.
Can I have a second, please?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Passes 5-0.
Well, the next item is, we got to get to work thanks to that passage of the first item. This would be granting approval to Lusardi to proceed with this project, which would start in days.
Motion to approve staff recommendation.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second.
I'm done. No more microphones.
Take it away.
Passes 5-0. Moving on to N3.
Reference student reinstatement case number 2022-23-27. Move to accept the panel recommendation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Passes 5-0.
Regarding item N4, reinstatement case number 2023-24-11. Move to accept the panel's recommendation.
Need a motion and a second?
I'll second.
We need a motion first.
Oh,
Oh, you-
that was
That was
No,
the
I
motion.
apologize, yes, very good, thank you. And second from Zesty. Passes 5-0.
Regarding stipulated expulsion case number 2023-24-18, move to accept the stipulated expulsion.
Need a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Passes 5-0. Moving on to N6, memorandum MOU with AAA.
We're seeking approval for an agreement with AAA for the MOU for the Community Schools Steering Committee and the Community Schools Grant.
Thank you. Need a motion and a second?
Shall we do that before the comments or questions?
Well, we can do a motion, or we can do discussion prior, whichever you choose.
Probably.
We can do discussion prior, absolutely.
Oh, it's it up to me? Nobody else has any questions? I have a few, and I'll begin on the first page. This school site specialist coordinator. So there'll be an overarching coordinator, and that's fine, and I actually wanted to say I thought highly of the pillars as they were laid out, and the plans for that. My question comes with the school site specialists. Each designated community school will be assigned a site specialist, school site specialist. The school site specialist shall be a district certificated bargaining unit member. Is there a reason for that? That excludes anyone who may wish to opt out of being a bargaining unit member.
Oh, I got it.
So the question is somebody who is what used to be a fee payer, they're still bargaining unit
Correct.
members.
Correct.
They just don't pay the fee to the union.
Right.
So any certificated member of any of our certificated personnel, regardless of their fee, whether they pay dues to the union, would be eligible for these positions. Is that correct?
Anyone was able to apply for these positions. We did not even look at that.
I know, but it sounds to me as though you have to be, how can you be a bargaining unit member and not pay a fee? Then what's the point of paying a fee?
But if you, go ahead.
There is no point.
I thought we're not allowed to say that out loud.
My microphone's off. But you're still
I
a
think
bargaining unit member,
it's a-
even if you're not a fee payer.
Right.
The contract
It's-
still covers, they represent the certificated teachers, and so the bargaining unit contract covers all members that we have to treat.
All
the same.
of our employees.
All of our certificated employees.
Certificated employees.
Yes.
They wouldn't be a member of AAA perhaps, would be the state.
Right.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, you don't
The
have to
bargaining
be,
would be all teachers, and AAA would be all fee-paying teachers.
you don't have to be a fee payer to
So
be
you
a
don't,
bargaining unit member.
you don't have to be a AAA member. Okay.
Good question.
Yeah.
Well, I thought that was kind of exclusionary, especially given the constitutional reasons. CSE, here's one. CSEA will have 3 members, AAA will have 3 members, and CSEA will have 3 members. However, if there are any unfilled CSEA positions, they will be filled with AAA members. There are also 3 community members, and there are 3 community partners and 3 members designated by EUSD. So I think that would give unfair weight to AAA in the event that
In the steering committee.
In
we're
the
talking
steering
about.
committee. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
yeah. Moving on to the steering
Steering
committee,
committee.
yeah. So I think if CSEA doesn't field 3 members, it would be better to have a neutral party assigned to that. And that maybe would be a community partner rather than a representative of the district or one of the bargaining units. So it would be equally weighted.
Yeah, definitely, we could look at that. However, I think the point right here is that, I mean, CSE is very much invested in this as well.
Oh, I
And so-
know, and that was the other thing.
Well, this is
I
an
could
MOU,
go
it's
on.
an MOU with AAA, so of course they're going to be looking out.
Of
for-
course, but that doesn't mean that we have to acquiesce to it's like I say, everything shouldn't be in the contract, because then you find out there are things in the contract that you wish it weren't. And you don't know how far down the road that happens. The other one is that the president of AAA will be on a steering committee, but it doesn't say the president of CSEA, and I wonder why. Do they not want to have their president in that role?
I think we are communicating with the president of CSCA for all of this.
Mhm.
So that person, I've contacted them and let them know of the committee.
Mhm.
And then they were able to give me names, which could have been including her
So
or
you don't
other
know.
people.
Or have they given you names?
Yes, no, they did.
Oh, okay.
They did. And she has been included and invited in any of those other, she's been part of giving us those referral names.
Can I jump in for just a second? I actually am in agreement again with Joan here. At the language here, I would prefer to see, if there's any unfilled CSEA positions, they would be filled with EEA members. And if there are any unfilled EEA positions, they could be filled with CSEA. But to have it without that reciprocity, that doesn't, it doesn't seem to make sense.
It sounds like if we would do that, we would then enter in an MOU with CSEA.
And that would be fine if there were a sister MOU.
Right.
But
Because they would then-
it does sound like we're expecting not to have CSEA
Right.
with members, and that, I don't understand why we would not, and why,
Well, they have provided us 3.
They have.
absolutely, at this point, I get
And I can't
that.
imagine they ever would not have 3
Right.
going to serve.
And even if someone doesn't attend, or kind of we hear that somebody can't attend anymore,
They'll have
then I
alternates.
contact the president of CSEA and let them know, and they give me another name, which has already happened.
Really?
Okay.
Yeah, because I was going to say, the CSEA members were very active in the
Oh,
steering
yeah.
committee meeting. They had a lot of
So
great
how
ideas.
but they didn't participate in
Well,
the
because it's an
They
MOU
didn't have
between-
any input into
Because
the MOU.
the MOU is between AAA, and they can't bargain for members of CSEA. So a sister MOU would then provide equity to that unit with CSEA and have them, we could offer the same reciprocity.
Reciprocity,
Reciprocity.
is there a plan to bargain a similar MOU with CSEA?
There is now, yeah.
And we need to remember that this is only a 1-year contract.
Yeah.
So
A
each
1-year
year, we're going
MOU.
to go back and look at what do we need to change.
Yeah.
It says it sunsets June 30th, 2025.
Yeah.
I saw that. Even so, this will be the most important year, I think, with the steering
Right.
committee, because it'll be setting up all the parameters.
And CSEA has been very much involved, and this is just, it's because of the bargaining unit, they really cannot bargain for each other.
Okay, I still don't like that seat automatically, that vacant seat would automatically go to AAA. I don't think, even though it's an MOU with AAA, that shouldn't give them an unfair advantage in having the majority of the representation. And so far, it's pretty even, 3, 3, 3, 3.
Yes.
And that would give more weight. And it's not just academics that's involved.
Correct.
There are a lot of CSEA employees who will be subjected to this steering committee as well.
Correct.
So I don't think it would be right, again. So let's move on, and then you can see what you think about the cumulative issues that I have. Steering committee members will agree to serve on the committee for 1 year from the date of commencement. And this is midway down, item number 2, district-wide community schools steering committee. AAA steering committee members may serve more than 1 year at the discretion of the association's president. Okay, I understand that. But what about the other members' extension? What if CSEA members want to serve more than 1 year? And it's only the AAA steering committee members that may serve more than 1 year. So there should be, and again, perhaps we need another agreement, but that surely should be in it as well. Otherwise, they'll be constantly turning over, and you'll have, because I expect this agreement will be renewed at some point. You'll have one representation with term limits, basically, and the other with ongoing.
And so, just a question, just a clarifying question. If we're saying that steering committee members will agree to serve on the committee for 1 year, so everybody else except AAA, aren't we in fact negotiating for CSEA? Okay. Yeah.
I'm just backing you up there. We're in agreement on this.
Okay. Yeah, and I made a note, it gives rise to a permanent class. And then, responsibilities of district-wide steering committee will include facilitating a democratic designation process for district community schools. So, and I wrote next to that, just see my above comments on the overweight given, even though it's an MOU with one bargaining unit. Again, maybe it should have been more neutrally prepared with CSEA in mind.
Right.
Can I ask a question on that bullet?
What does that bullet mean? What is a democratic designation process?
Yeah, that's a good one too.
I don't know what that is.
I think they're talking about the, where they can come together and vote, essentially, like as a group, like go ahead and everyone has a voice, is my impression of what that bullet means.
And that's why it's so important that it be balanced,
Right.
that steering committee. Otherwise, you're going to have
So that,
a weighted vote.
So that's with regard to decision-making for the committee? Okay, so it's not how they're designating district community schools?
Right,
Okay, okay.
because they don't pick which schools are community schools.
democratic process for guiding.
So everyone, they get to
No, I
vote.
get it.
Yeah,
I get it.
and that's why
I
there's,
just, I don't understand the wording.
that's why there's equitable representation proposed. So. That's my input on the MOU.
Any
So
more
we're
discussion?
So we're just suggesting that CSEA has an MOU? That would be your,
Well, until we do, I'd like to see them both together, rather than count on that it coming out evenly. And I don't think any bargaining unit should have more weight than the other.
yeah.
I
Does-
think they should be equally represented. And so if someone that can't serve on the CSEA, I wouldn't say you have to eliminate, that's their choice, but I think then it should be a neutral party who's assigned to that, no matter whose MOU it is. And reciprocally, if CSEA, if AAA can't field, if that is even possible, three
Right.
interested members, then it should go. the
Why don't we
decision go to
table this item?
CSEA.
We table the item, give us a chance to meet with the other CSEA.
Is tabling the item going to, is that going to negatively impact any implementation of the community schools grant? That would be a concern.
Because we have positions.
No, because it's not stopping, the other items would, like the job descriptions. and
No, the
all
job
that.
description.
Yeah. No, this is really more of the operating procedures of establishment and of the steering committee. So we can iron out some of those, and then, so my recommendation would be we just table this item.
Oh, it's the job description that sunsets. Wait a minute.
This is sunsets also.
Yeah.
Yeah, the MOUs typically have
I think
a-
they all are a
Yeah,
year
okay.
at a time.
Well, that makes sense.
So do we move to table?
I believe we can just table. can we?
Right, we can
Just table, okay.
So we will table this item
and bring it back.
and bring it
Well,
back.
bring both back then.
Mhm. Right.
So they should really hash that out, how that their seat is going to be filled. If they, in fact, yeah, that they should have a suggestion as to how their seat should be filled. If they
Okay.
can't field three people.
So we have tabled N6.
You never know.
Moving on to N7, job description for,
So we're looking for approval for the community schools MTSS site specialist job description.
any discussion on that part of the motion? No? Okay.
Move approval of the community schools MTSS site specialist job description as presented.
Thank you. Second? Mark? Passes 5-0. N8?
And then the last is approval for the MTSS site specialist salary schedule, the new salary schedule.
Any discussion? Need a motion and a second.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Second, Joe? Passes 5-0. And 9.
Can we make him stand at the podium?
I have a few questions.
Asking for approval for a contract extension for Leonard Levine, Chief Technology Officer.
Make a conditional motion that if he helps me reset my password. Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion and a second.
Should we set my password first?
Yeah, actually.
They're very nice about that. I have a lot of experience with that one.
And it passes 5-0. Good job.
Thank you.
You still have to reset it.
My password still is not reset, so.
And it doesn't extend until it is, so.
Alrighty, moving on to board members' report. Mark?
I'll be brief. Just want to say thank you to all the staff. What a great school year. Had the privilege of being at promotion at Bear Valley this past week. It's always great to be out there with Mr. Reski and his staff. They did a wonderful job. I was able to be there with Dr. Barra and Audrey Frank, and it was a great, efficient evening. So I appreciate that always. But again, thanks to all the staff. I know a lot of the teachers are off for the summer, but I know the work for our CSEA staff is just ramping up. So I want to thank them in advance for the long hours and the probably the many hours of overtime that they're about to embark on to make our campuses ready to go and prepare for the next year. So I hope everyone can enjoy some time with their family this summer, and that the students, congratulations all those that promoted. We wish you future success at the high schools, and I believe there'll be Doug's challenge from now on, but I hope that's into my report.
Thank you. Zesty.
Thank you. I second everything you said. That was very nicely said. I attended the Ignite Dance Team Awards. What an amazing group of students with their talent. I mean, and they worked through everything. One of the songs, the music cut off, and they kept going like nothing ever happened. It was really good.
That happened in a competition
Yeah.
once, yeah.
They were,
They are
yeah, they were
amazing.
well prepared for it, and a lot of them were able to choreograph their own routines and the emotion they put into their dance. It was excellent. I also attended the Nets Colloquium at LR Green, which is always such a fun event. They do such a good job decorating and catering. Oh my goodness, all the support from the community restaurants for that event for our teachers. Excellent presentations as usual, and a sigh of relief for those year 2 teachers who are finally done with their clearing their credential. I attended the Limitless promotion, and speaking of...
Thank you for that.
Oh, no problem. And speaking of efficiently run promotions, I went to Hidden Valley promotion with Dr. Ibarra, and I think we were out of there in like 36. It was fabulous, and they fed us snacks. So you know,
36
we like
minutes?
snacks. It was great. They had it really well run and efficient.
Beat Mr. Retzky.
Yeah, Mark, you would have loved it.
I guess so. I'm gonna go there next year. Sign up for it right now.
We're gonna fight who gets to go, but yeah, excellent promotions, and congratulations to all the 8th graders going to high school.
Thank you. Doug?
And I also attended the Nets Colloquium with our newly fully accredited Nets program. The colloquium was excellent as usual. The quality of teacher that we're producing, the support we're providing for them is going to give us decades of excellent instruction. I also attended the Mana celebration. Mana is one of our after-school programs at several of our middle school sites. It's a mentoring and support program, an academic support program for Latina girls, and the celebration was excellent. It was mostly middle school students. Hidden Valley Mission, I believe, are the main ones, and the celebration, what they've learned, what they've been doing is excellent, and really speaks highly about our after-school program and the emphasis they put on getting girls who might not have the family history of going to college into a position where they can apply for top-level schools and scholarships. And that was borne out by the fact that of the high school students there were 2 of the students in particular who stood out, who are Gates Millennium Scholarship winners. First time the high school district has ever had 2, and those students are going to Stanford and Harvard respectively, first students in their family to attend any level of college. They are first generation high school graduates. That's incredible, and how they'll do at Harvard and Stanford, with the full financial support is outstanding. Del Dio's promotion was very, very nice. We missed Joan. I especially appreciate it because it is in the evening and therefore nice and cool. We like that. And very well done, very good student speaker. Mission promotion was very good also, absolutely outstanding. Several student speakers who were really excellent. And that promotion was very fun, very well done. We had a very good discussion with CSEA tonight, and just want to echo the previous sentiments of how appreciated our classified staff is. Our classified staff members really do form the backbone of this district. They are who is maintaining facilities. I regularly talk with the group at Cleaning Central School late at night, and you know, they are really, they're short-staffed. We know that. We don't have a lot of extra people, but they do an excellent job. So thank you to all of the CSEA, all of the classified staff members, along with all of our teachers and administrators for a great year. Thank you.
Wow, I missed a lot this year, and I'm really sorry for the events that I missed. Some of my favorites, Ignite and the colloquium, but I also had a graduation to attend. So, but I did, and I'm sorry I missed Del Dios this year. I was scheduled for Del Dios, but then I saw that there was no representation from the board at Quantum, and I didn't think that was right. I thought and boy, am I glad I went. So I haven't been to Quantum's promotion ceremony for a long time. It was wonderfully done. And I have to tell you, it took an hour. So it was longer than Hidden Valleys. But first of all, we had, along with the pledge, we had a wonderful rendition of the Star Spangled Banner by Eloisa Guerrero, because she had someone graduating there, so, promoting there at Quantum. And then every student, as they walked across the stage and received their diploma, or their certificate of promotion, they played their voice, thanking whoever they felt grateful to for getting them through this process, through the 8th grade at Quantum. And mostly it was the parents, and there were some really touching voices and speeches. So they were kind of embarrassed because they had recorded them earlier and then they had to listen to themselves as they walked across the stage, but that's okay. And every one of them looked us in the eye as we shook their hands and thanked us, and I was very appreciative of that. The decorations were marvelous. It was well done, and went 1, 2, 3. It went very quickly. I thought an hour was great. There were about 54 promotees, so have to do it again sometime. If they don't overlap, I would do both. I would have done both. So. And that's my report.
Thank you. All right. And I did attend the Rincon Middle School promotion with Andy, and ours was what, an hour and a half?
Yeah, about that,
Yeah, ours was a. And poor Andy had to sit in the sun while I sat in the sun. The only one, yeah. The way they set up the tent. Andy was in the sun and I was next to him. So, and the sun came out right as it started. So it was cloudy right up to the point where it started, and then as soon as it started, sun came out, and unfortunately Andy was the.
And you didn't offer to switch places halfway through, right?
Well, we had several conversations. We did move a couple times, but we had to originally go back to our original seats. Yeah.
Cold water and sand.
But, oh yeah, but it was a fantastic promotion.
Now we know where they're gonna have to do more retreating.
Yes.
Site.
Mr. White did a fantastic job. Staff was fantastic. Really shout out to all the staff that did everything they did to make that happen. It was fantastic. Even though it was an hour and a half, it didn't seem like it. It went rather quickly, a lot of good entertainment, the band, the choir, and everything else. So very appreciative of everything they did. So, and that's it. Dr. Navarro.
No, just want to echo the sentiments. Promotions went off very well. Really happy with all the work that was accomplished this year. Thank you to all our staff, teachers, administrators, and our classified employees who are busily getting us prepared for the fall as well. And then, of course, we've got a very busy summer with summer projects for maintenance, but also all the summer programming that's happening, the pre-summer program, summer school, and then the post one. So
Don't they start on the 10th?
I think they do, yeah. That's coming up in a few days, so.
That's Monday.
Yeah, and I did want to, Hidden Valley promotion went very well. And they still, there was a song, they sang I think it was Star Spangled Banner as well. They had 2 speeches. What they didn't have was they had a separate award ceremony, so it wasn't included
Yeah.
as part of it.
Bear
so-
Valley does that too,
Yeah.
the separate, they used to, a separate
Yeah.
award ceremony.
So all efficiently done, and most importantly, our students are off to high school. Good for them. And our families are going to be enjoying a much-deserved summer break. So for everybody, families and our staff that can find some time to do that. All right, that concludes my report.
Cabinet, are you sure? You've said enough, okay. So our next meeting, the next regular scheduled meeting, board meeting will be held on Thursday, June 20th, 2024 at 7 p.m. at the Escondido Union School District, Carolyn Gilbert Education Center. That being said, we are adjourned. Thank you so much.
So where did they have the promotion ceremony?